Welcome back every week. So much fun because we deep dive with the most amazing people. And today's guest is a new friend of mine. We met because both of us belong to a fantastic mastermind for the entrepreneur called Board of Advisors. So when we had Q2, I was down in Tampa, as some of you know, just a few weeks ago. And I'm so fortunate because I gelled with this beautiful lady over here. Obviously, some of us are listening. You're not getting to see, but we are with today Chloe Millard. And Chloe Millard is just an amazing female entrepreneur with just a great story and very inspiring. And I'm hoping that today you find her as amazing as I did when I first met her. So, Chloe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Rhonda, you were just the sweetest. Thank you for having me. And I swear I have like the biggest girl crush on you. So I appreciate you having me on your show. We definitely connected instantly. So such a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
I think when we met, it's safe to say that you and I travel in wolf packs of men.
Yeah.
And, so when you find another female that you could gel with, you're like, oh my God, thank you. It's kind of like being out of town and you find somebody from your home state. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You're like, oh my God, you're from Texas. I'm from Texas. You're from New York. I'm from New York. So it lands up happening is that when you and I met, you were talking to somebody that I was friendly with, and we just made this introduction. But you are very, I'll use the word fiery. So let's talk a little bit. You are a single mom. You are a entrepreneur. You're a go-getter. You don't give up. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for that. Because yes, I related to you in a heartbeat because as I have been on the road and doing more of these shows, like you can really sense who your people are kind of more in a crowd. And you were that for me. But really my story is I'm just a serial entrepreneur. And I've spent a lot of time, my corporate background was in medical device sales and lots of just entrepreneurship along the way. But yes, I'm now a single mama of three. I have three beautiful, amazing babies that are two girls, 6 and 5, and my little man is 2. And I married my high school sweetheart. We were together for 16 years. But like many other entrepreneurs, there's really a lot of give and take in your life. And as you kind of grow up with people too, I mean, I'm a big believer that people come into your life for a season. And I realized that with as much as I loved my partner, it just really was a lot that I was asking of him to take on this life with me, and it was just something that he didn't sign up for. So it was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. But for the sake of our family, I kind of made that decision that we should kind of, grow separately. And so now we have just two amazing homes for our kiddos, and my career has now been able to take off. So it was a very, very, hard decision, but it was better for both of us. And so I'm very open and transparent about that journey because as an entrepreneur, it's such a struggle to build something in the face of adversity, which as a woman, I know you can relate to me when I
Yeah, of
say
course.
but also be the person that has always been there for you, your rock. If they can look at you one day and say I don't believe in you, like you need to start over, and you need to kind of go down your own path. So yeah, for me, I've been through it just like anybody, but I'm to the point now where I'm living life very much unapologetically myself.
I love that statement. And so many important things that you just said. The things that I'm taking away just from that conversation is hey, ladies, don't be afraid because no matter what's in store, if you are dreaming big and bright, you need to go ahead and you need to go reach for the stars. And what I love is that you didn't say, my ex-husband is a piece of dirt and my baby's daddy did this. You're saying I had this beautiful relationship, and together we had three amazing children. But my journey or my next chapter was not in the same book as his. So
Exactly.
you're co parenting. It sounds like you have a great relationship. And I'm a believer that if things aren't right, you don't stay in a relationship for the sake of your children, because that's where the toxicity, I think, is built.
Mhm.
But on top of your life experiences, you're probably at that time going through even just hormonal changes,
Yeah.
scheduling changes, who
Mhm.
needs a diaper and who needs to get to school, right? There's a lot to
Yeah.
juggle with
Uh-huh.
3 kids. So, how did you push through and come up with your first business concept?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great one. So my first ever business endeavor, I was actually still in college. So I'm one of those unicorns that just I loved school, I loved working, but really now that I've gone through therapy, which I love talking about, I realized I was really just trying to get attention from my parents. So I graduated college in 3 years. I graduated when I was only 20, and when I was in my senior year, I actually published my first book. And that I will not share what it is. It is very embarrassing looking back at it, but it was really social media for entrepreneurs. It was kind of like a handbook that I created for small business owners because I'm dating myself, but way back in the day when Facebook first came out, I was in college. And I actually, hopefully, it was way before then, but I was teaching business owners how to use it. So that was my first ever dabble at it. But my real business didn't take off till I was around 23, and I started a subscription box for yoga practice. So anyone with a yoga practice, it was kind of like Birchbox, but for yoga. And so it was my first dabble in it. And mostly it was for my mother-in-law at the time, who rest her soul now, she has since passed. But when she was with us, she had muscular dystrophy that she suffered from. So she was unemployed. And, just in my early 20s, I've always had that giving heart where I just want to help people. And so I thought, what a great opportunity to work with my mother-in-law, who I love, give her, hands-on, like something that she can help me with and do. And for anyone listening, I highly recommend keeping friends, family, and business separate when you can, unless it's very, very unique and special. But what I'm saying is I've learned so much along the way. Those are some of the businesses I started, but my real big ones, it was after I was having my babies. And I've shared this on other podcasts. I launched all of my early startups when I still was working in corporate. So having my job in medical device, where I was a regional sales director, and I started having my family. I won't say like who or when, but I did have, for 2 of my babies, I had 2 different lawsuits I won at 2 different companies and medical. And I symbolically used my winnings from those lawsuits to buy my first businesses. So I had experience in starting a business from scratch, starting a product, a brand, a website, all the things. And then I wanted to know what it was like to flip a business, to, do an acquisition from start to finish. So I thought, you know what, this is probably a sign that that's what I should be doing right now. And the time
Uh-huh.
this was October of 19, girl. So October of 19, I was like, yes, I need to buy 2 brick-and-mortar facial bars in downtown Chicago, one in River North, one in West Loop. And I had a 18-month-old daughter at the time and a 4-month-old daughter at the time. And so that was when I decided to go into that endeavor. And as we all know, surprise, March of 2020, everything shut down. So I then became a brand new business owner who didn't know what she was doing, to a brand new business owner and a pandemic who didn't know what she was doing. But this is where I feel like, Rhonda, in my entrepreneurial journey, where my mind shift really switched, and where I feel like I developed these skills that I now hold as an asset. And I saw it because the one good thing about the pandemic, and I know all the real gritty entrepreneurs will agree with me, is that it obviously inspired change. And we see that a lot in like natural disasters or any pandemic in history. Like that is where like change is born, because it's a necessity at that point. So I
Yeah.
kind of looked at my situation, was like, you know what? As shitty as this is, like the whole world shut down, no one's happy. But it finally occurred to me where I had an edge, because I was no longer the newbie who was like, how am I going to compete with all these brands around me that have been around for 80 years? How am I going to get business? When we were all shut down, I was like, they don't know what they're doing either. So now it was like an even playing field. So I loved that energy that I then was like, hey, I can be different than all these other owners. And I slowly saw a lot of owners around me going out of business, to where we all rallied around each other. And I know, you being on the East Coast, Rhonda, you probably saw your own, like a lot of stuff. Like we're friends. Like when we were all going through this, all of us in, Illinois, California, New York, like we were all banding together because because we were locked down the longest. So what I saw was in reaching out to other business owners, it was very much like, hey, what if we all stand together, united front, and do this for our businesses, or try to reopen, or try to do this on the side? And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs were like, no, like that's too scary. I don't want to go against what anyone's saying. I'm just going to wait. And you know what? We all waited for 2 years. Not me though. Like I was quick to be like, well, no, we have to do something else. So I started a CBD company while we were shut down, where I was like Walter
Well,
White making
hold
things
that.
happen. That's a
Let's
lot.
just go. First of all, let me just say to the audience, and this is why we have Chloe Millard as a guest today, because as I said when we got started, she is fiery. So Chloe Millard starts her first pandemic business in CBD.
Yes.
Go figure. First of all, tell everybody, what state do you live in?
I now live in Texas, and I no longer operate that business, and it's not related to Texas, but I now am in Texas, in Dallas. And I created a CBD line for women during the pandemic. And I'll tell you why. I saw so many of my mommy friends that were just like me, stuck home with their kids. And we love our babies so much. But when you have a full-time job you're working, and now you're becoming a stay-at-home mom that nobody signed up for originally, you're trying to juggle. And even worse, if you're an entrepreneur and your sole income hinges on the economy being open, like you turn into mama bear. Like I mean it. I feel like I was such a weak person before I had kids. Being a mom gives you such an edge that if I ever need a job to get done, I bet on a single mom all day, because you have that fire in you. So I started this CBD line for women because so many of my mommy friends were becoming alcoholics. Admittedly, they'd call me and go, shit, like I've had so much wine today and it's not even noon yet. What should I do? I'm like, girl, put the bottle down. Step one. I was like, that's what we got to talk about. And like, all kidding aside, it genuinely was a problem then. I've heard so many of my girlfriends still say it's a problem for them. And I am like, very proudly, like 7 years sober now. And for anyone who wants to dabble and try it, I'm fully supportive. And anyone who doesn't, that's fine too. It's like the bar is my favorite place to go on a girls' night. People don't get it, but I love my virgin mocktails. So I wanted to give an alternative. And so I was like Walter White making this stuff in my kitchen, because I started taking it before the pandemic and got hooked, where I was like, this stuff works. And again, for anyone who doesn't know, CBD oil, it's just a little tincture, and it's legal, as far as I know, in every state, because it's just CBD. There's no THC whatsoever. And these little bottles of oil, like no joke, this big, $85. And I'm not a total do-it-yourselfer girl. I'm not a big DIY person, but I am when it's like a solution that I'm like, I could do that. Like, why would I pay 85? I'll do it. So I started making them myself and putting like really cute branding on it. That's my biggest gripe with a lot of these things, is that you're forgetting the women, bro. Like I'm sure you can relate. There's so many products or things that you might like where you're like, you're missing the mark. If you just spoke to women, your sales would triple. And we don't need like a Barbie doll girl in the box. Like, I'm not saying speak to women as in all you have to have are women, representation. But what I've seen a lot in my career on the marketing side of our business, where we consult companies, is that one of their biggest targets and demographics is women, and they have zero marketing plans for her. And so that's why I started a CBD line just targeting women, and it blew up. I mean, it blew up in the sense that our biggest customers, they weren't single moms or just one-on-one moms like I thought it would be. It was pharmacies. Pharmacies in New Orleans were gobbling up our rosé all day gummies. Like we sold out every month because they bought these CBD gummies that we made champagne flavored. And anyway, so I digress, going down a long, long rabbit hole of fun products. But yeah, in a nutshell, I've kind of started every little business that you can think of and had fun doing it. But all the while learning a lot along the way, obviously.
I love it because you're not afraid to take a risk. And I think what I love too is I refer to myself as a creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the spark of an entrepreneur. You can't keep us in a box because we're like, and now we can do this, and now we're going to do this. And people say to me, Rhonda, I feel like you're all over the place. I'm like, but am I? Think about that for a minute. I go, but am I? Or am I strategically making my next move?
Yeah.
So what happens is that, you look at other women, and I have a handful of women, believe it or not. And I just spoke about this recently at another stage event. And I said, my best friends are my women that don't live in my backyard.
Mhm.
And it's because you need to expand to share ideas. And we may have even spoken about this when I met with you. I could express anything to you because you're my confidant far, far away. Right? So as another female entrepreneur, but when you're in your backyard, people they want to jibber jabber and they want to kill your flame.
Yeah.
So I love that you got so gritty with what you needed to do and you took control. Now, just for the sake of time, we know you've built other businesses. Tell us a little bit about M4.
Yes. So M4 Advertising was a luxury marketing firm that I launched when I first moved to Dallas. So I'm glad you bring that up, Rhonda, because it wasn't until I left Chicago, my bubble that I grew up in, and relocated and kind of rebranded myself, did I see the true potential in having that network that you described. So when I moved to Dallas, I didn't know a soul. For most people, they would think, oh, that's the worst time to start a business. Why would you leave where you knew everybody? And I'm like, no, being the new kid on the block and having that like card to play in any business meeting you walk into, I looked at the low hanging fruit in my area, and that was marketing. Like it's very much the South here, where I couldn't believe that businesses, they just relied on word of mouth. That was how they got customers. And I was like, that's beautiful, man. But like, you can't scale like your word of mouth. Like, so I developed my company out of demand that I saw. I just started like meeting business owners and saying, hey, if you had an alternative to reaching customers, specifically affluent customers. So M4 Advertising is a full service marketing agency and ad agency where we specifically target affluent demographics, because the idea is the affluent consumer today is someone that only buys on trust. So they're not typically affected by discounts or, price decreases, which my customers love. And they also, they don't buy your bullshit. So it's purely how can you change their lives and saving them time or solving a problem. So it really helps take away all the fluff in marketing. So I've been able to leverage that company and start my other company as well, because I built the relationships in my marketing firm to then use as a stepping stone to launch other businesses in DFW. So that's just an example of how, to your point, Rhonda, I'm also very strategic. I look for how do I get what I want, but also help people because those people will want to help me get what I want. So it's all very connected. And if you think about it and you're just genuinely a good person, like none of that is fake or self-serving in any way, but it's also very planned out, very intentional. So I'm not just floating through life, just seeing what sticks. You're very targeted with your time, but also open to go with the flow.
So, just for the sake of time, if you had one piece of advice to give to a female entrepreneur, what would that advice be?
Ooh, dang, that's a good one. There's so much. Go for it. That's my advice. It's always go for it. Because we can all sit here all day and talk ourselves out of a million things we want to do. And you can take a million reasons to not do something, but I would always just say, go for it. And sub advice is find your tribe, just bonding with women like you, like just one connection with you, Rhonda. And it literally just kind of set my whole day up. Even if you just take energy from a person and you never connect again, but obviously you and I, like we've connected again. So go for it and then find your women. That was so big for me, is just women in this space can just be a major asset when you can kind of stick together.
And if somebody wants to find you, connect with you, what platforms are you on and under what handle?
Oh, yes. Please find me on Instagram. That is probably the easiest one for me at Chloe Millard Official. But I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook at Chloe Millard. I'll just probably check Instagram a little more. Would love to connect.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, hope you had an amazing experience listening, and I hope that you've been empowered during today's session. So until next time, stay tuned, getting ready to bring you information on next week's show.